Good morning. This is a relatively quick video involving how to easier connect one of these switching power supplies to a higher amperage wire than you might normally be able to do. This one is a 40 amp power supply. It's 12 volts 40 amps, and it can run up to 13.3 with my modifications. The issue with getting a lot of amps out of this thing is that you're limited to these little connectors, and when you use spade connectors, a lot of times the spade connectors that fit in here can only be used on wire that can go up to about 20 amps, 25, 30 amps if you're pushing it. So if I wanted to get the full 40 amps out of this thing, I would have to run 3 14 gauge wires or 2 20 gauge wires off of each one of these, and then have to join them together. If I wanted to just use a single 8 gauge or 6 gauge wire, or yeah, something like that, I can't hook them up to this. There's no terminals that will fit in here. So I did some Googling and didn't realize that this was going to turn into a quest for an unobtainium item. You would think that with how many of these power supplies are out there that somebody would want this, but apparently they just really don't, or I just don't know what it's called. So after a lot of Googling, I found something called a Marco 300U04 4-position single row side jumper 0.375 centers, and those look like this. Now there's only 6 connections on here, 3 for plus, 3 for minus. So if you trim the connection, let's get this out of here. If you trim off one of the ends, and this is made of brass, and you'll see that's actually a problem. So these are made of brass, and I started looking into how many amps can this carry. If this was copper, it should easily be able to carry at least 40 amps. I think I did some calculations, and I think you might have been able to get like 60 out of it. But because it's brass, brass is only good for about 28% of what copper can carry. So I would either have to make this 4 times thicker, or I just have to derate what I want, and I'd get maybe 15 amps out of this. So using that as a template, I made this. I have some copper plating. This is a 16th inch thick copper sheet, and I basically just trace this out onto it. I made 2 of them. I just used a punch to mark it, and then drilled the holes out to the size of the bolts or the screws that are in the power supply, and then these are for 1/4 bolts, and then I just cut the whole thing out with tin snips. I mean, I could probably make it look nicer and prettier, but this works. You could probably round these off. It won't affect the amount of current it can handle. So 0.375 is the spacing between these holes. So if you want this to go in here and fit, you have to have 0.375 spacing, at least for this power supply. There might be other ones out there with different, but so you put one in here, and you would put one on this set, and then you can draw your full 40 amps. To get more than that out of this, you'd either have to solder two of these together, and you could get 80 amps, or actually you can get, I think it was like 115 amps that this can actually handle. I have to double check that. But if this was 1/8 inch thick, it could handle more than 200. Anyways, thought someone might find this useful. Thanks for watching.